Well, this week's podcast is a bit longer because it's a replay of the live webinar that I did on behaviour solutions or reducing behaviour by setting up your classroom for success. I can't emphasize enough how important this podcast is. So often we forget about the little structural changes that can make a massive difference to our neurodiverse children. These are the quick accommodations and adjustments you can put in place. But if you want to learn more with me this year, please check where I am coming. I am coming to Queensland, Victoria, South Australia. Sorry, Western Australia, not getting there yet, hopefully later in the year. But you can join me for the live virtual workshops. So the live virtual workshops get amazing evaluations and reviews. People love it. People ask me afterwards how I use the type of technology I use. So I know it is really hard for a lot of you to get released. So there is one full day on Friday, the 1st of March, or you can join me over 2 afternoons from 4 till 7. So you can have front row seat. You can be cooking dinner while you're watching me if you want. I don't mind. But I would love you to join me for those either the full day or the 2 half days if I'm not coming near you, because you don't have to rush somewhere after school. You can just plug in your computer, jump on Zoom. I've had people driving home in the car watching and listening to me. I mean, it's so much fun. And register soon because I'll send you out a show bag if you're in Australia that has lollies and highlighters and the handout, everything you need. So make sure you register soon so I can get those show bags out to you. I cannot wait to see all of you this year. I am super excited to be back face-to-face and doing live virtual. And of course, if you prefer, you can do the online courses, which you can watch anytime you want, and on demand, like watching a Netflix show. It always cracks me up, the people who message me after going, oh, I binged it. I watched it all in one day. So I cannot believe how many people do that. And the other thing I was going to say is if you're not sure what courses are for you, I have a great comparison guide that my daughter Eliza's just helped me create that compares all the courses, tells you how long they are, what you'll learn in each course. So have a look on my website for that. And last but not least, the free webinars are available. So if you want to have a taste of any of the courses and just watch them, there's Tony Atwood, Temple Grandin, Dean Beadle, myself. There's so many lived experience and so many great courses that you could do. So why not watch the free little taster or webinar that you can watch on demand, and then you can join me for learning this year. Hope to see you soon. Please, if you see me in person, come up and introduce yourself. Let me know you're a podcast listener. And if you're happy, I'd love to get a photo with you. Hi everyone, welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Promised you an hour of power, so I am going to start our hour of power. First, I highly recommend you actually have your handout printed out. The reason for that is I do talk really fast. But those of you who know me know it'll be fast moving, interactive, funny if you have the same sense of humour as me, otherwise a lot of bad jokes. And I have worked in special education long enough to know you actually need a sense of humour. So I am hoping that I am funny. If not, I apologise in advance. But the reason I'm saying to print out the handout, I do talk really fast and I don't want you to get distracted taking notes. I would prefer you get to listen. Of course, we'll send you a replay so you can rewatch it if you need to. And that's what people love about these sessions, that you can go back to it if you need to. But I highly recommend you print that out. I will also be referring to the ebook. But the ebook, I actually recommend you download it on your device and have as a PDF, or I printed both the handout and the ebook on my phone. Just really handy to refer back to, with lots of tips and strategies. So I want to dive in. So let me just check a few things. I've told you about the camera, the name. Oh, volume. We've checked the volume on a few computers here. If I'm too loud or soft your end, can you just fiddle with the volume your end? And anyone who has just joined us, the chat isn't recorded or your faces, so you don't need to worry about that, but make sure I'm pinned if you just joined us. So I'm keen to find out which courses you've already done. So let me just go back. Okay, I want to find out your prior learning. So oh wow, you're all pretty focused for the afternoon. Well done. Okay, amazing. Okay, let's share the results. So we have 33% of you who have done one of my courses before, so welcome back. This is all very different to what we do in the full day course, which is more that step-by-step information. Tony Atwood, 19%. So those of you who have done Tony's a psychologist and he does what is autism spectrum. I'm a teacher and I do what to do. Early childhood, 7%. Welcome. This will build on the things you've learnt. Temple Grandin, I noticed quite a few of your questions have done Temple. I love Temple. If you don't know Temple Grandin, I highly recommend you watch the movie by Temple Grandin. It moves, which it's on like Amazon or whichever streaming, but it's worth watching. It's just called Temple Grandin and it won 6 Golden Globe Awards and we've done a course together. So if you don't know Temple, make sure you check her out, her TED Talk or a movie. She's amazing. 10% teacher assistance, welcome. 14% emotional regulation. 47% first time, half of you. Well, welcome all of our new people. It is wonderful to have you here. So I do need to warn all of you, especially, that I do talk really fast. So please don't put your hand up for this next thing. I am going to give away some courses, okay? But don't put up your hand. I'm going to call because that makes everyone move on me. So Candace Bauer, B-O-U-B-E-W-E-R, you are a winner. You can either join me for a face-to-face course or you can join the live virtual or do the online on-demand course. So you are a winner. It explains in the next slide about what to do. Let me find somebody else on this slide. Kerry with an I, Osmond. Kerry Osmond with the glasses on. You are a winner. You can choose a course to win. Let me have a look here. Julie Ann Dromgold, you are a winner. I feel like I've met you before, Julie Ann. Yes, we have. I thought so. That's amazing. Now, and Mrs. Stafford in the green flowery top, you can choose a course to win too. And I'm going to do one more. This one I'll just do someone at the end here. Marion Schuber, S-O-U-B-R-A. So you are all winners. So you can choose either to join me face-to-face, or if you look in your, I think it was in the handout. Yeah, in the back of the handout are all the different online courses. So you can choose one of those to win. And the next slide is going to explain, just email Andrew, let him know what you want and we'll get you set up with one of those. But if you choose the live virtual, which is on March 1st or 2 afternoons, like similar time to this, make sure you register soon because I will send you out a show bag, which is so cool. You get all the little things in it that I'll send out to you, okay? So make sure you let us know if you want to do the live virtual, because the advantage of doing the 2 afternoons, you won't have to get release time. Now, I have got all your amazing questions here. Thank you, everybody who sent in your questions. But 1 second. Sorry. I just got too many bits of paper. Megan in Queensland, I am going to give you I think you would really benefit from my face-to-face course. And I saw that you're in Queensland and I am in Queensland in 2 weeks, one in Brisbane and one in the Sunshine Coast. So I'm hoping you can get to one of those because I really think you have a child who is throwing. And throwing is a big behaviour, and reading what you wrote, it could be a sensory meltdown, a behaviour meltdown, or a tantrum. And what in my full day course, we go through that and we break it down into a child throwing, same behavior, could be sensory, could be behavior, or could be a tantrum. And reading your comment, I'm like, I think we need to do a deeper dive into this. So Megan in Queensland, your email has like a 193 on it. I won't read the whole thing out, but I hope to see you. And make sure you come up to me on the day and we'll get a photo and send it to everyone. Okay, so it doesn't matter what your role is today. If you're a teacher, an educator, teacher assistant, I call you angels, a parent, you are in the right spot. You're going to get a lot of tips and strategies. What I wished I'd known when I first started teaching 30 years ago are the things I'm going to tell you today. But the main things I wished I'd known is this. Every child I've worked with is different. I've worked with over 3,000 children from age 2 through to 80 to adults, and every person with neurodiversity is different. Now, get ready on your emojis. Give me a thumbs up if you agree. Strategies wear out. That actually, things wear out. Strategies wear out. Yes, thank you so much there, MG. Not every strategy works for everybody, which was someone's question was in an early childhood setting. That inconsistency between staff can be hard, but also what works for mum mightn't work for dad. What works for the maths teacher mightn't work for the science teacher. What works for the English teacher mightn't work for the phys ed teacher. Not every strategy works for everybody. And in my experience, most strategies work for 1 in 10. So today, I don't expect everything I say to work for you. In fact, I'd encourage you to look at it like this. I'd encourage you to go, done it, give this one a try. I'm going to adapt this one. Actually, this wouldn't work for me or the student. So you need to think of the individual place you are. Those of you who have done my full day workshops, I say it's like speed shopping. It's like we're going shopping, trying on coats, and not every coat will work for everybody. However, what I would recommend after today is you make sure you have a look. There are lots of extra tips in the ebook. And if you have a phone on you now, you can actually just go over that QR code, and in the ebook are lots of solutions. But what you'll find with all of my books and all of my podcasts or anything I do, I always like to give 10 ideas to try. So if I want to talk about building rapport with a student, you'll see I've got 9 key ways to build rapport. Yes? So I want you to go, tried it, that one didn't work, that one wore out. I do not like where people only have one strategy to try. So that's why I've written over 18 books. All my books are jam-packed with lots of ideas to try. So I highly recommend that you really think when you're listening today to listen from that. Tried it, done it, oh, there's a good one to try. But there are lots of extra tips in the ebook, which I'm not necessarily going through today, but you can have a read of them later, is my thinking. It sort of builds on what we're doing today. So I want all of you ready in the chat though. Everybody get ready in the chat. If we had a child who was 3 years old and they were in a wheelchair, what would the wheelchair need to access their preschool? Everybody, tell me in the chat. Ramp, okay. Same child is off to primary school. They need to access their primary school. What would that child need to go to primary school? Everybody, speed typing, ramps. Excellent. And now, when same child is off to secondary school, what does that child need? Ramps, 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 ramps. What about community access? Parents, grandparents, everybody needs ramps. Yes? Do we say to a child who's going from preschool to primary school, oh, we're going to fade your wheelchair. We're going to take one wheel off at a time. But I hear that. Oh, we're going to fade the sensory. We're going to fade the visuals. You know, autism spectrum, neurodiversity is for the whole of life. You can't fade it. Just like a child needs a ramp and a wheelchair for accessibility for the whole of life, my students need these structures for the whole of life. And the reason that I'm saying this is because the lovely Donalyn asked, is this webinar for secondary? Absolutely, it is for secondary, because we put the same things in place. In fact, ramps and wheelchairs create independence. We need the same ramp, the same widened door, the same accessibility toilet for every age. But in my experience, if you put in place the right support or ramp, you will get reduced behaviour. Because the first thing most people see for neurodiverse children is behaviour. And the reason they see behaviour is because the child doesn't have the right supports in place. Just like if a child didn't have their wheelchair and ramp, the parents probably would have to carry the child into the preschool. So this afternoon is all about what are the structural changes you can put in place to support yourself and the students you know actually. So I just wanted to share, and the other reason I put this in, a beautiful principal called Jan sent me an email the other day saying how invaluable my course has been for their whole school staff. They did it as a whole school. And now when teachers come to her with a behaviour, she'll often go, and what ramp have you built for the student? What are the strategies you've put in place? So this afternoon, I want to give you lots of ramps so that you can go, okay, what is the thing this student needs? However, I want to remind you that when a child is quite young, say under 4, you might push them up the ramp. But by the time they're 14, they're actually wheeling themselves or in an electric wheelchair. We're aiming for independence. When I'm working with children, my aim is always, will this lead to lifelong independence? You might want to write that down because I didn't put it in your handout. Where is this going basically? Is this going to lead to lifelong independence? It's a bit of a choose your battles. So for example, I don't do potties for toilet training, straight to the toilet. The potties just add a step in between, yes? Just straight teach the child to use the toilet. So what will lead to lifelong independence? So for some of our children, actually being able to manage time leads to lifelong independence. So I'm very passionate that we use timers, as you'll hear today. So have a think about that. What are the ramps this student needs? But what is one of the most important behaviour management systems? I actually believe it's the classroom setup, the structure. The number of you who wrote questions about, we've got an open plan classroom, we've got all these children, and yes, the classrooms with all that noise and movement, it's overwhelming, not just for the neurodiverse children. Can I tell you, I have been into schools where the teachers find it overwhelming too. Give me a yes in the chat if you think it's more than the neurodiverse children who find these busy, complex classrooms overwhelming. Yes, it is. Thank you. Yes, it's not just the students. In fact, I was in a school in Melbourne a couple of years ago, this big open plan school, and the principal was calling himself Donald Trump because he was building so many walls because the staff were saying the noise was so disruptive. So I think we need to remember, and in fact, New South Wales did a study, I'll put it on my Facebook in the next couple of days, where they've actually said they're not going to build any more open plan classrooms. The educational outcomes are not good. Actually, that open plan is not actually working the way we expected. But when I worked at Western Autistic School in Melbourne, the classroom structure was an important part of the visuals for our children. In fact, oops, sorry, someone's not muted, Andy. I did my doctorate research on using visuals, and one of the key visuals that we need to use for our students is the classroom structure. And what I mean by that is actually having the tables and chairs set up, tell the children to sit at that table. By actually, you know, some of my kids love COVID now that people have put spots in where to stand when you line up at supermarkets. Some of my young adults really wish those COVID spots were still there. Some of my young adults loved it on public transport in New South Wales where it had the leave this seat empty because they don't like people sitting next to them. So remember that during COVID, we put all those visuals to remind people. So visuals aren't just about this sort of visual. The environment can be a visual too. So I truly think we need to look beyond the behaviour. And remember, for many of our students, we see behaviour, But we have to remember what's going on underneath. Is it communication, sensory, social, emotional regulation? Which many of your questions were around that. Oh, I forgot to say, if you have a question today, please just jot it down in your handout. If I don't answer it in the next 45 minutes, you can email me after today. I'll get Andrew to put my email in the chat because I got so many questions. I don't always get through them. And the way I like to do questions is integrate them into the talk. And so if I don't get to your question, or I've already missed yours, Lily, about reluctant learners, sometimes I get busy chatting and I forget to look at my notes. So Lily, you wanted to know about reluctant learners, and so often it is about working out what's going on under the iceberg for that child. Is it their emotions? Is it social, sensory? We have to look below the surface to work that out. Now, the next thing we're going to win is one of my favorite books. I wish I had written this book. So don't put your hand up if you've just joined us. Just stay where you are. So this book I call See a Behaviour, Look It Up. There are 3 in the series. So if you've already got one, you can select to win a different one. If you're in secondary, I recommend this, Beyond the Classroom. Primary and early years, the first one, and parents, the school and community. But why I love this, let's pretend we've got a child difficulty following directions. I go to here and it's just like, oh, done that. This is why, they may appear to be daydreaming. What we might see, they may have trouble finishing. And then here are our solutions. And we can go, done it. Oh, hadn't thought of that one. That one never worked. Why I love this book, one of the authors is an occupational therapist. And when I worked in an autism school, I wished I had understood the importance of sensory when I worked in mainstream. Now, sensory didn't used to be on the diagnostic criteria, so no one talked about it. It's been added since I worked in a special school. But when I first went to a special school and I saw what occupational therapists were doing and really understood the impact of sensory on children's learning, it was a game changer for me. And that's why I love this book, because it includes an occupational therapist's ideas around behaviour. So I'm going to choose some winners for this book. So let me see. Tracy Toner, you are a winner. Kerry Job and crew, K-E-E-R. Oh, Adam Campbell, how could I resist those happy hands? Okay, I love it. And let me go here. Sorry. Marion Shobra, S-O-U-B-R-A, with your coffee cup in hand. Yep, fantastic. And Kit Pride, P-R-Y-D-E. Yay! So choose one of these books. These are amazing. If you haven't seen them before, they are in the back of your handout, all the resources I'm talking about today. But honestly, take this. I still take this into schools. When I go into schools, I often get asked a question and I get put on the spot and I look in here, not following playground rules. Boom, boom. It's just a really quick, especially if you're writing your IEPs, this is the absolute must-have book. And many of my parents, I recommend you have this, and I recommend you give it to the teachers as a gift. I think it's like $29, and it'll save a lot of questions for you that you don't always have the answers to either. So I highly recommend that. But the reason I like it really is that sensory, which is why so many of our children are overwhelmed and why we do need to think about their positions in the classroom, because so much of it is sensory. So sorry, I'm just going to go the bigger one. So what behavior do you see when the child is sitting? Share in the chat. Fidgeting, stimming, up and down, rocking, flapping. Yes, see, they're trying to self-regulate. Moving spots, calling out, chatting. Yes, absolutely. Now, if you look in the first picture where all the students are sitting at their desks, some of our students like secondary because they're sitting and they've got that sensory of knowing where they are in space. Dean Beadle, who I've had out to Australia many times, talks about how when he was in when he goes to a restaurant or out for dinner, he has to pull the table at the chair right under the table. When he flies on a plane, now come back to me if you're distracted, because this just was a game changer for me when he explained this to me. When he flies, he likes the table down because then he knows where he is in space. He doesn't like not having anything in front of him. So that's why some of our children need something weighted, or why they might put a soft toy. They actually need that thing in front of them. It's to do with their vestibular movement and not knowing where they are in space. But Dean Beadle, the first time he flew and they told him he had to put the tray table up, nearly had a meltdown. So what he does now, bless him, he carries a heavy book, because they don't ask you to put the book away when you're on a plane, and he has it open on him like deep pressure item, right? So he's worked out it's not going to read the book. It's just about having the heaviness of that book on him. So some of your students, that's why, because someone did have this question, this child's fine sitting at the table, but when you're sitting on the mat, look, other children are touching you, moving, there's all that sensory around you, hands going up and down. If you think about it, when you're on the mat, it's not just this child's movement, even a child putting up their hand, going out the front, back, all of that can make so many of our children have to do the things you're mentioning, which is the fidgeting, biting themselves, touching others, tapping, that they're actually doing all those, often trying to self-regulate. So we have to look below the surface. And in fact, a lot of this has to do with executive functioning. And in fact, I was going to do a whole little section on executive functioning, and I realized it was a whole topic in itself. So what I've decided to do in 2 weeks, my podcast is going to be like a mini training on executive functioning. And I'm also going to have some PDFs and extra bits you can print out to help with understanding executive functioning. But just quickly, for a child sitting on the mat, they have to be able to process what you're saying. They need to use working memory to remember what they want to say. They have to use emotional regulation if they don't get called on or don't get asked. All of these things are executing, executive functioning. Executive functioning are the skills to execute. And many of our students, particularly ADHD and ASD, that is their biggest struggle. And it's the one thing I wished I knew about earlier. Sorry, I don't know why I said the word trouble. I meant struggle. So if that didn't come out very well. So think of a child sitting. There are so many skills in sitting. Now, I was in a school last week and they had those wobble stools. I can tell you, not all children like those wobble stools. Some feel seasick on them. They're not for everybody. I would be guided by an occupational therapist, or see, some of my children find them more distracting. So give me a yes if you have a student who they work well, and give me a no if they don't work well, because I tend to get mixed reactions. I probably should have done that as a poll, but I would love to know. Yeah, no, yes, no, mixed, yes, good. So remember, not every strategy works for everybody. Now, here's the problem. You see the carpet or the mat or the wobble stool. For this child, actually, what looks like just a little, like just sit on the mat. It's not itchy. For them, it can feel that way. So I saw this on Facebook recently, that labels look like a label to you, but for the child, that could feel like a cactus, right? But again, this is where we need to use lived experience. When Lawson did not like crossing her legs on the mat because she doesn't like the feeling of skin on skin. And I know some Queensland teachers will say that it's a hot, humid day and this student insists on wearing their long winter pants or their long running jogging pants, because when they cross their legs, they get that feel of skin on skin, is my experience. So we have to remember what we see and what our children feel are very different. And we have to put ourselves in their shoes to understand that. Now, I did do a podcast on why a student can't sit still. And I actually came up with, I think it was over 30 reasons why a child can't sit still. So I'm not going to go into that now. But if you scan over the QR code in your handout, that will take you straight to that episode. Now, ignore that little note I made for my daughter Eliza to make me visual on executive functioning. As I said, I'm going to do that as a whole podcast in a couple of weeks, but I accidentally left that in your handout. So ignore that, but make sure you do jump on in 2 weeks where there will be a visual on executive functioning and really doing a mini training on that. But one of the struggles we have when we're looking at the children sitting, we need to choose our battles. Like, what is the goal? What is the goal of the child sitting if they don't like everyone touching? If this student prefers to sit on their own, what is their educational outcome? What is our goal? Is our goal the students sit with other children, or is our goal they do the work? And this is where we have to ask ourselves, what is the goal? Because often when I work in busy, complex classrooms, I actually find it's better that the neurotypical children move to the neurodiverse child. Sometimes my neurodiverse child's better in their seat where they're comfortable and other children come to them. But then there are some children who actually need the movement. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the educational outcome? What is the goal for this student? So Jane, you have a child in the early years who has trouble sitting on the mat, but can sit at a table. Jane has a child in the early years who can sit on the mat, who can sit at their table because they've got that deep pressure on them, but not at the mat. So Jane, I would be asking myself, what is the educational outcome? Is that child better off sitting at the table to listen to us? Could I put a table at the back? Now, if you're going, what about the other children? I'll come to them in a minute. But when I had a mainstream class in year 2, one of my little boys just could not cope on the mat. So what I did for him, and it's in my first book, Making a Success, I had a chair for him and a friendship chair. And anyone I saw helping Nathan or being supportive got to go in the friendship chair. Can I tell you, it was actually an inclusion chair, because the kids, instead of them all dobbing on him, would come up to me after break and go, oh, Mrs. Larkey, I helped Nathan with this. Mrs. Larkey, I helped Nathan with that. They all wanted to go on the friendship chair. They were two year 2s, too busy worried about themselves than worried about him having the chair. So choose your battles. But for me, I had 28 children in that class. It was a complex class. My goal was he was seated and calm. I didn't have a teacher assistant all day. So having him and someone sit next to him so he wasn't socially isolated, for me, the educational outcome was achieved. But you need to ask yourself, what is the educational outcome? Because tell me in the chat, when is the last time you as an adult sat with your legs crossed for an hour? Tell me in the chat. When is the last time you... Thank you, Anne, for laughing at my jokes. Yes. Never. So remember, I don't teach potties because I begin with the end in mind. Is sitting with your legs crossed a lifetime goal? Is this going to lead to this student learning outcomes? What is our goal? Because I don't believe sitting with your legs crossed is a goal. Yes? So that's just me. Choose your battles, but I highly recommend you have a think about that for this student. Again, positions at assembly. Some of my students really struggle at assembly. And again, you might need to ask, what is your goal? Are they best sitting on the end of a row? Are they best sitting with an adult? And I've put some good ideas in the tips there. Another time I get a lot of behaviour is at the bags, lockers and tote boxes. Let's face it, there's noise, movement, but again, it requires a lot of executive functioning. So everybody tell me in the chat, if a child is going to their tote box or even their lunch box or their bag or their locker, what would they need to be doing? What is one thing they would have on their mind when they go there? I hope that makes sense. But they're going to get something, aren't they? So what do they need? They need to remember what they need. They need to open. They need the skills to open it. They need to remember what they have to do. But normally they need more than one thing. They often need a pencil case and their book. They often need a drink bottle and their lunch. That for many of my children, they're having to manage the sensory of the crowd. Thank you so much. That went past really fast, whoever said that. But for so many of my children, or they get to their lunchbox, do they take the whole lunchbox? Do they just take their recess? You know, for the executive functioning skills just to go to your tote box or locker is enormous. And now we're going to add in the sensory of all the movement, lockers opening, closing, banging. I want you to all think of yourself. when you're in secondary, what sort of behaviour would neurotypical children be doing in the locker area? Come on, have a think. What would we see in the locker area? Chatting, yelling, mucking around. A lot of teasing, which some of my students see as bullying, pushing, shoving. Thank you. Okay, those of you in the early years, when children come in and hang up their bags in that, often in that first little area in your early years, who else is in that area? When the children hang up their bags in the morning, who else is there? Those of you with children under 6. Parents, mess, often other babies. Some of my children are scared of crying babies. So they're siblings, thank you. So often for our children, these are sensory overwhelming. So we need to think about, how can we get them in fast? Do they need to be on the end of the row? How do they need to be up high? How do we make sure that they're organised? And to tell you the truth, I choose my battles. For some of my students, I don't even use a locker or tote box. I would prefer they had their own thing set up somewhere else in the room. I would prefer, because they have to remember what they're getting coming back to their desk. How about I just have a book box on their desk with their things in it, to save them having to get up, move, come back. In high school, I would also recommend that you teach them to put their books standing up, and I still use those colour containers, because if something's in their locker like that, near impossible to find. Whereas if something's standing up. So change the structure, not the child. By putting their locker on the end, by giving them a box with their things in them, all of these things help. So can you all tell me in the chat, what's one structural change that you've put in place that's made a difference this year? My guess is you have put things in place. A social story, chair bags, fantastic. A locker away from it. Dare I say, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are on it. I love it. I love it. Cushions, a water tower, sensory, carpet spots. Oh yeah, I love carpet spots. I love having these. I'm not a big fan of the wobbly ones. My ADHD kids tend to wobble, but these are great. And I've seen some schools actually have carpets that have the spots already built into them. They're amazing. Okay, so writing, dysgraphia. Some students actually are going to need pencil toppers to chew. Some are going to need pencil grips, but I would encourage you to try this tomorrow. If you have a child in the under 7 often where they flap to cut or lean on everything, what I want you to do, I learnt this from Sally McNamara, whose book's in the ebook, put a piece of paper under their arm. What that does, it engages their core, so when they go to write or cut, their core's engaged, because you actually need gross motor to do fine motor. Just like a baby, the first thing they're going to do is roll over before they crawl. You actually need core to do fine motor. So I highly recommend try this out tomorrow. Put a piece of paper under their arm and see if their cutting skills or writing skills improve. Because often the flapping arm actually makes their dysgraphia, their writing, even messier, and then they get frustrated. So those of you who are on earlier, I talked about choice making and about minimizing choices. So, Maria, you are at an IB inquiry-based school. My kids went to IB schools and I understand how that works, which is great for neurotypical children. But for neurodiverse children, how is that going? What is the educational outcome? How are they coping with that? Are they always just focusing on their special interest, or are they choosing a range of topics? Are they handing anything in? Are they getting any work done? But this is no different to a play-based curriculum in the early years. Remember, the ramp and wheelchair are the same. If you are giving a child a choice of readers, are they taking home the same reader every night? So I want us to think about, what is the educational outcome? So this is just a little thing to get you thinking. I know it's the afternoon for a lot of you, but I want you to have a think. What is the educational outcome? To write a story or find a pen? What is the educational outcome? To choose a book or read a book? Have a little think in the chat there. Okay, wow, you guys are doing very well considering that you are learning at the end of the day. So 82% of you said it's to write a story, not to find a pen. Many of my students, I go into the schools and they are wasting time finding their pen. When I do workshops, adults turn up without a pen. When people say to me they should remember to bring a pen, nod your head if you have forgotten a pen once. So we have to be really careful, but if for that student it is to find a pen, that's your choice. But personally, my goal is they do the work. So we have to ask ourselves, is it about the executive functioning skill, finding a pen, or writing the story? Now, this is interesting. 18% of you said find the pen, by the way. 24% of you said choose the book. 76% of you said read a book. Again, it depends on the child, but personally, having worked with neurodiverse children for a very long time, I believe with our diverse children, it's about let's just get them reading. I don't care what they're reading, really. The choosing the book often stops them choosing. So I want you to just go back and over the next week, there's no right or wrong answers, depends on the individual child. I want you to just stand back and notice, is the organising, like finding a pen, getting in the way of them learning? Is the making the choice about which book to read from the reading corner or the reader box, or choosing a topic in an IB, is that actually a barrier to them learning? And if it is a barrier to them learning, what can you do to speed that up for them? Just like the ramp in the wheelchair analogy from earlier. Now, a lot of people ask me about quiet areas and setting up quiet areas. Look, some children actually need big body breaks. Some children do need calm areas. So if you haven't listened to my podcast, I would listen to episode 166, which is how to create a calm area. But also the blog that goes with it is awesome. It has so many tips on how to set up a calm area. Because if you see in your handout there, one of the things that I really liked in that blog, because I asked on my Facebook, what are the things that work? This comes from my Facebook community. They said you need to set out rules about where it's going to be, when they can access, and how long they can access. And I think they're really good points. And there's a whole lot of other points, but I just pulled those ones out so that you think about it. Can they just go there whenever they want, or is there a set time? But the same with big body breaks. I think children with big body breaks, that's the case too. Now, Linda, I would recommend you listen to episode 148, which is a teacher shared about how they've set up their open plan classrooms, because they were having struggles like most schools, and they put in place a whole lot of systems around open plan classrooms, which were really clever. So episode 148, Linda, for you around setting up your open plan classrooms. Now, again, some of my students actually need those big body breaks to help them regulate. So we need to think about, well, how are we going to do that? And again, if you have access to an occupational therapist, they are ideal. But some students, I would give them the break as a preventative break. Too many people wait for the child to escalate. And those of you who have done my course, you'll remember that we talk about the first stage of a meltdown is often a change of body posture. So if the student does have a change of body posture or a look in their eyes, this is where you might need to get in and get them doing a movement break. Once they hit the meltdown, it's too late. But my biggest aim is self-regulation. I would much rather the child actually can self-regulate, but that can take many years because many of our students, their emotions come on. And if you don't know Lauren Bruckner's book, this is great. I use it with the whole class. It has a whole lot of fantastic activities you can do with the whole class, like big body breaks. But what I love, she gets children to set up a menu actually of what works for them. But remember, emotional regulation is like going to the gym. You've got to do it consistently. It's not a one-off. It's a muscle, as is executive functioning. So, teacher assistants, angels, as I call you. If you don't have a teacher assistant, still listen in because I've got a bit of a challenge for the teacher assistants here today. So, teacher assistants, there's some good tips for you in the ebook, but also next week I've got Dean Beadle, who I was talking about earlier on the plane. His free webinar will be available, and I highly recommend you listen to that. It's about myths and misconceptions. But his teacher assistant was a game changer in his education. She actually, Mrs. Rendell, was like, turned him around from not attending to finishing his A-levels in England. So make sure you have a watch of that webinar. It'll be available for the next 2 weeks. And there's also a new behaviour course with Anna Tullemans, which I know some of you have done. And Anna and I wrote the red and blue teacher assistant book. But I have a challenge for all of our teacher assistants here today. And teachers, if you don't have one, my challenge is this. I believe there are 4 main reasons we get behaviour. And this isn't in your handout. It came from me reading all your questions. I believe we get a lot of behaviour because, number 1, can the child wait? Can the child finish? Can the child ask for help? And do they have a plan B if something goes wrong? Now, teacher assistants, if your child that you're supporting can't do this, I want you to teach them these skills. I want you to teach them to wait for a turn, to wait in line. Think of all the different ways they have to wait on the mat. I want you, can they finish a task? Or do they get anxious when they have to finish? Do they need 5-minute warnings? Can they ask for help? But not adults, their peers. Because so many of my children can't wait for help and then have the meltdown. Can you see how all the things go together? And do they have a plan B? And what I mean by that, if they make a mistake, they don't get a turn, they don't win, do they have a plan B? Teaching children to have a plan B is so important. I was in a school last year and it was Easter, and all the children, one of the families had made these lovely little Easter bunnies for all the children. And one of the little girls on the spectrum got the Easter bunny and she had it. And then the teacher said, oh, before we go to the break, just go and put your Easter bunnies down with your bags. And then we're going to take some books across to the library. And then you can go off for morning tea. So she went down, she had her bag and her hat, and she put the Easter bunny under the hat, okay? And I could see her anxiety going through the roof. And I could see her trying to work out what to do. See, that's the problem solving, the choice making. See, other children thought to put the Easter bunny in their lunchbox. She didn't think to do that, but she knew that probably wasn't a good place to leave it. Her anxiety was going through the roof. And I went up to her and I said, what's on your mind? And she said, I'm worried my Easter bunny's not going to be there when I get back. And I said to her, if your Easter bunny's not there, what are you going to do? And this is what she said, scream. Scream. Why? Well, if I scream, someone will come and help me. How many of your students use behaviour for help? I said to her, but maybe we could go and let the teacher know that Easter bunny's missing because I saw she had some spare ones. You know, I said to her, we need a plan B. So I've asked the school since I was there to work on plan Bs with her because this was coming up all the time. Anytime something was wrong, boom, straight to the screaming. Give me a yes in the chat if you've seen that, where students don't have a plan B. They just go straight to hit the emergency button. Yes. So in my Red Beast book, I put one of my students who I was doing plan Bs with, and he was in year 9, by the way. Yes, it's the same strategy. He said to me, Mrs. Larkey, thank goodness there's 26 letters in the alphabet because I can have a plan C, D, E, F, G. Yes, how many of our students only have one plan? If they don't get the friend they want, if they don't get the activity I want, boom, straight to the meltdown. Okay, timers. I know most of you know I am a huge fan of time timers. They really are the most amazing tools. They visually show children how long they've got left. They make time visual. Now, Adrian, you've got a student who doesn't like time because when they love something, time goes fast, and when they don't like something, time goes slow. That is for all of us. I would ask you to model that with your student, but my guess is your student doesn't want to finish or they don't want to wait. So I would say you might need to add a visual, what they're going to do when they're finished, because now we're creating a transition issue that they don't want to get off the computer because the timer's gone off, because do they know when they're coming back? or do they know what they're doing next? So if you've never used a time timer, if you're in the early years, I recommend these ones. If you're in primary, these are fantastic for the whole class. They visually move back on their own. So I'm going to choose some winners of these. Liz Collins with double L. Rachel SKUD with all the books behind you. Scooters, sorry. The writing's so small. It's so hard for me to read. And Jocelyn Cox. There's our winners of our time timers. Let us know which size you want. If you look in the back of your handout, you will see a whole lot of different timers. But time management is anxiety management. And in your ebook, I've put a whole lot of tips for using time timers. The next strategy is to carry around a notepad and pen. My students are visual learners, and so often people have visuals everywhere. Some of my students need you to actually write things down for them. And I just carry around a little notepad, spiral notepad and pen. Try it out for the next week. You will be amazed how often just having that on hand. And my secondary school kids, I often get them to carry that round because so many of them would love to have notes on their phones, but they're not allowed their phones out. Okay. Hyperlexia. No one asked me questions about that, but hyperlexia is the ability to read with limited comprehension. Many of my children can read the instructions but don't know what to do. Many of my children can tell me the rules but don't know how to apply them. That is the difference between actually decoding. They can decode the text, but do they understand it? So that's called hyperlexia, and this is particularly common for children with an autism diagnosis. So I highly recommend that you have a look at that. Now, the next strategy, oh my goodness, I've got 10 minutes. The next strategy is this, that we need to think about recess and lunch. Can you tell me in the break, why do we have recess and lunch? Why do we have breaks? What is that about? What is the point? A brain break. Oh, great. Food, drink, toilet, sanity. I love it. But my question to you is, what is the educational outcome for this student? Tell me in the chat, how do your students return from the break? Are they making friends and refreshed? They're coming back anxiety, stress, dysregulated, overwhelmed. So my point is this, what is the educational outcome? Is your student actually getting the same break as others? And this is where we sometimes need to think about what are the structural changes we need to set up. Can anyone, I love it, give them clubs. Thank you so much. You read my mind. So some of our students, we need to ask, how can we achieve that? My doctorate research found that many students on the spectrum actually choose to go to the library. And it's not that they're readers or into books, it's the library's quiet, well supervised and less sensory overwhelming. There are rules in the library. The playground doesn't have as many clear rules. Now, I know some of you have amazing libraries that have set up games and activities, but board games, children through a pack of Uno cards, oh, I meant to have them here. Tell me, what are some skills you could learn through a pack of Uno cards? Everyone, tell me, one pack of Uno cards. What skills could a child be learned playing Uno at lunchtime? Counting, turn taking, numbers, sharing, losing, skip. You have to skip a turn. It gets reversed. Following turns, colours, yes, asking for help. All of these skills, all through a pack of Uno cards. $4 at Kmart. Why not just let children have some more structure? So I believe that for many of our children, we see them come back in dysregulated. But think, in the playground, you need communication, sensory, social, emotional regulation. So we need to think, what can we put in place to help that child? It might be a club. It might be board games. Chess is really, I just think that's not always true. Not all of our students like chess, Have a think what they might like. But I had a parent a few years ago tell me his little boy on the way to school on Thursday said, "I love Thursdays, Dad." He's like, "Why?" He said, "Because the gardening club is on and I know what to do at lunchtime." I want you to observe, are these students wandering around? Are they looking for friends? They often choose the wrong friends in secondary just because those children actually include them. So I would like you to look beyond the obvious and think, what could you do to be proactive rather than reactive? That year 2 class when I had Nathan, I remember after lunch, nearly every day, I'd waste half an hour of learning time, not Nathan, other children in my class, having to resolve issues and sending a child off. Give me a yes if you agree. After the breaks, often there's this student needs to come to the office. We waste so much learning time. Are you kidding me? It's crazy. So I am going to give some people some developing social skills book. Chia K who said yes then. Chia K KH O something. Rachel O'Brooke, Beth Williams, and Paul Bartlett. I'm going to send you the Developing Social Skills book for sharing in the chat. Now, if your name starts with an A to J, I want you to pretend you've had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and you're busting for the toilet. Tell me in the chat what your concentration's going to be like for the next 5 minutes. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink, busting for the toilet. What will your learning be like if your name starts? Zero, cranky, low. Okay. So when I worked in the autism school, before we did any behaviour plan, come back to me if you're distracted and you're like, 5 minutes till it's over. Before we did any behaviour plans, we ruled out, has the child been to the toilet? Has the child had something to drink? And has the child eaten? Some children don't eat breakfast. Their first meal of the day is recess. Some schools do crunch and sip, but this child can't eat because of mysophobia, which is the crunching sound from other children. And you can read about that in the ebook. But can I get you in the next week to ask the parents, is the child eating, drinking, going to the toilet? Because so many of my children go home and they've hurled all day. So check that out. Remember, it's easy to change the structure and change the child. So guess what I'm going to ask? Make it routine. Don't send them to the toilet when everyone else is there, because remember, for some of my children, the hand dryer is like having a huntsman in there. I'll get rid of that for people who don't like spiders. So I would like you to establish a routine. Routine time to have a drink, go to the toilet and eat. I like to do 25 minutes work, have something to eat. 25 minutes work, have something to drink. So in the chat, can you share what sensory tools have you seen used effectively in your schools or educational settings? Because they're not always used effectively. The wobble cushion, the sensory cushion, I love it. I love it. While you're sharing that, I have to share this. I saw this on Facebook. Somebody on We Are Teachers, someone put, what small, inexpensive thing has made your teaching life better, easier, better, or fun? And this, small stretchy dinosaur toys. I taught high school for 37 years before I retired. And whenever a kid was having a bad day, I gave them a stretchy dinosaur. The tactile sensation is calming. The nostalgic joy of getting a silly little toy from their childhood was priceless. I absolutely love that. So change the structure, not the child. If you don't know those little stretch toys, I love those. They are amazing for children who love blue tack. Now, in the ebook, there is a whole lot of great sensory tools and how to use them. There's also some information on eating, and I highly recommend you use in the ebook those 18 ways as a checklist. But can I just remind you to look beyond the behaviour, that actually all of these, the behaviour is often the underlying neurodiversity. And remember that the wheelchair and the ramp, for some of our children, it is that little sensory tool. Now, I love this saying, fair isn't everybody getting the same thing. Fair is everybody getting what they need in order to be successful. And in fact, I'm going to send you on Friday, it's my birthday, and I have made a beautiful poster like that. Watch out for your emails. I'm sending you that poster to put up in your school, classroom, wherever, because I feel like it's a birthday present from me to you for Friday. So I have got one more prize to give away, which is a book to some people. But I definitely want to give Angela in the early years who sent in a question, I really want to give you my early years book, because I think you're so right. So many early childhood educators are not getting this understanding and education. So often we just get our diverse children and they haven't learnt these skills. So my early years book is jam-packed with what to teach, how to teach, and it's got all that, like teaching a child to wait, finish. Sorry, I am looking at the time. I've got 1 minute. So here, remember at the start of the session, I talked about the wheelchair and the principal called Jill. Well, she sent this in the email. For example, I asked her if I could quote her, and she said this as an example. For example, we have a student, his teacher was frustrated that he was always forgetting to bring his book and pencil case. I was able to use the ramp analogy to work with her to see he needed something. We put a reminder on his phone and chatted to Mum for help with the system at home to remind him to bring his books. Bingo. Not rocket science, but the ramp analogy is just a great way to reframe. So I hope you've all just had a little chance to reflect on what are the ramps you're going to put in place. So can you write down in your chat, in the chat or in your handout, one thing you might put in place? It might be Uno. It might be thinking about having a set spot to seat. And after you've done that, I would be forever grateful if you could just actually scan over that QR code and just let me know how this hour's been for you. I know I talk really fast, but I'm sure most of you would not have wanted to give me 2 hours of your time after a long day at work. And if you don't already join me on social media, make sure you do. I'm always putting tips and strategies, but I would love you to just let me know how today went. Now, you've done the free course. Next week, keep an eye out for that Dean Beadle course, or I've got another free webinar. But I would love you to join me for an upcoming workshop. 50% of you are new, so welcome all of you newbies. I'm going to be all over Australia pretty much. Or you can join me live virtual. If you've enjoyed today, this is exactly how live virtual is. It's really interactive and fun and fast moving. And as I said, I send out show bags to you. So I would love to see you soon. And if you've never listened to my podcast, it is was number one on iTunes in education. And there are over 200 episodes, but make sure you subscribe so you know when that executive functioning one drops. And you can all still win. If you haven't won, scan that code. There is one quick question from our learning today, and you can still win. So scan over there. I just want to thank all of you for giving up your hour for being here this afternoon. I know how busy you all are, or if you're listening or watching the replay, I want to thank you for making the time to do that too. Don't forget to print out your handout because I do talk really fast and there are lots of extra tips in your handout and the ebook. But just a massive, massive thank you to all of you. I am staying on now to answer questions from my Neurodiversity Network and the Teacher Assistant Behaviour course. You're welcome to stay on, but I know a lot of you've already given up an hour and you've had a busy or long day. So thank you, everybody. I can't thank you enough. And make sure you enter. You might still win. There's going to be lots of prizes coming your way. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. From Sweden. Wow, I don't think I've had someone from Sweden before. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you, everyone. You're making me all teary. You're all amazing.
I hope you've got some great tips and strategies to make a difference. Remember, strategies wear out and not every strategy works for everybody. If you're ready to dive in deeper to more strategies and ideas to make a difference, I'd highly recommend you consider Dr. Tony Attwood or my online courses. For more information, visit my website www.sulaki.com.au.